So today we are talking about oven recording theory and importance. We're going to begin with a brief presentation on the importance of oven recording, and then talk about how it's done and a few of our product offerings as far as oven temperature recording. Then I'm going to pass things off to our automotive business line manager, Ray Roby, and she's going to do a live demonstration of our software for temperature recording and some of the features included with that. So oven temperature recording is done, of course, for coatings that need to be baked. Some coatings need to be baked at high temperatures in order to achieve the desired properties. This is very common, especially in the automotive industry. The vehicles and add-on parts are typically baked, but there are other industries who do this as well, such as powder coatings, which are often used on things like filing cabinets and office furniture and things like that. So the baking parameters affect certain properties of the coating, and so things like hardness, yellowness, cupping, and gloss can be affected by how long you bake the product for. And some of these are desirable properties and some of these are undesirable properties. So we can see from this graph here that, for example, the hardness, pendulum hardness just refers to, I see now that it's misspelled, the pendulum hardness refers to a particular type of hardness test. And so we can see from this graph that the longer this particular coating is baked, the harder it's going to get, which is usually a desirable property for a coating. But we can also see that the longer this coating is baked, the yellowness is increasing, so it may be off color if baked too long. The cupping test is going to get worse results the longer you bake it. So cupping, real quick, is just a test where you take a flat panel, a coated, usually metal panel, and you bend it around like a spherical form, just to test how well the coating stands up to deformation and whether it cracks and flakes and things like that. And so those properties are going to decrease as the product is baked for longer, as well as the gloss. Gloss is typically going to go down the longer you bake it. So it's important to achieve the right cure. You don't want to over-cure or under-cure your coating. You want to achieve just the right cure to achieve all the properties that you want in your coating. So curing conditions can also be influenced by part size and things like substrate thickness and the type of substrate, the heat capacity of a particular substrate and things like that. And so optimal cross-linking and curing of your product requires routine temperature control of the industrial oven process. So why do we record temperature? Again, to prevent over and under curing, to achieve those properties that you desire for your coating, but also to increase production efficiency. As they say, time is money. So if you have the option of baking your product for 30 minutes or 60 minutes, and it's going to end up just as good either way, you of course would rather bake the product for 30 minutes because then you can produce twice as many parts. It's quicker, and it also saves money because those ovens, of course, take energy to run, and that energy needs to be paid for, just like paying for your heating bill in your house. And so the shorter that you can run your oven, or the more product you can run through in a given time, the more money you're going to save. So how does oven temperature recording work? So first, you're going to take a data logger and you're going to program your measurements, and this includes things like the number of probes and the names of each, so you can custom name your probe. The curing conditions, these are usually given by the coating manufacturer. The oven specifications, the pass-fail criteria, the measurement interval, and measurement identification, things like what plant this part was produced in and baked in, or the operator or the oven if you have multiple ovens, things like that. So after programming the measurement, you then take your probes and attach them to whatever is being measured, whether it's a vehicle or an add-on part or some other non-automotive product. And then you can initiate the measurement. There are several ways you can do this with the logger, either by initiating measurement manually, just by pressing start, or you can program a trigger, meaning the trigger can either be a time trigger or a temperature trigger, meaning you can set a delay, say 5 minutes, and then you press start on your logger, and then you put everything in the oven and it starts recording 5 minutes after you press start. Or you can set the temperature trigger to say when a certain probe reaches a certain temperature, that's when to start recording, just so you don't get a bunch of junk data in the beginning while you're still setting up the measurement. And then, of course, after the measurement is done, you need to analyze the data, and that can be done on the logger itself directly or by transferring the data to our Temp Chart software. So here is our product offering for recording oven temperature. This is called the Temp Guard Pro, and there's a 6-probe and a 12-probe version. And so it includes a small logger with a color display and easy handling. It includes a thermal barrier, which is that case you're seeing at the top left there, which has a compact and ergonomic design. And can withstand temperatures of up to 200 degrees Celsius for 2.5 hours, or 250 degrees Celsius for 2 hours. And these are just a couple examples. If you're baking at lower temperatures, it can be in the oven for longer times, and it can withstand higher temperatures than 250 degrees C, which, by the way, is about 480 degrees Fahrenheit or so. But if you're at higher temperatures than that, then the logger could only be in there for a shorter time. And it also comes with the Temp Chart software, which gives you complete temperature analysis. It gives you a temperature profile with min-max temperatures that each probe has reached, cure index, things like that. And it also has some advanced functions such as a cure chart, tolerance curve. You can set up oven zones if you have an oven with multiple zones, and you can also set up a QC procedure. And when we get to the software demonstration, Ray is going to show you a few of those things. So in addition to the Temp Guard Pro, we also have the Temp Guard Dual, which is the super clever name we came up with for 2 temp guards. But so if you do have a need to measure using more than 12 probes, we do package 2 of these together that you can purchase, and there is a bit of a price break by buying the Temp Guard Dual rather than just 2 Temp Guard Pros. And so the data, once you take the measurement, the data can all be aggregated into one. So you're not analyzing 2 sets of 12 probes worth of data. All the data can be included in one sort of test measurement for test series, and analyze all the probes. All the data from all the probes can be analyzed together. So here is that logger that I mentioned. This is where you program the measurements, and this is where the data is stored and then downloaded from. And it's also where all the probes are directly attached to, as you can see here. So this runs on 2 AA batteries. And so this provides the benefit of if you're doing continuous measurements all the time, you don't need to stop and wait for the thing to recharge. You can just swap out the batteries. And the battery life is pretty good with a 0.5 second interval chosen. The batteries will last about 50 hours. So if you choose, that's the interval for the temperature measurement. So it's recording a data point every half second. You can set that interval for a longer time where it's recording fewer data points, and so that battery will last for longer in that case. But if you set it for a shorter interval, say 0.1 seconds, where it's taking more data per unit time, that battery will last for less time. And the battery status is permanently displayed on the logger, so you'll always know how much juice you have left. And the data transfer can be done via a USB cable, or a USB stick. So these are the specifications of the logger. The temperature accuracy is going to be within half a degree Celsius, or about 1 degree Fahrenheit. The resolution is 0.1 degree. You can buy a logger with either 6 or 12 channels. Channels just means how many spots there are for probes, so you can choose one that can accommodate 6 probes or another that can accommodate 12. The memory, it can record 240,000 readings total, meaning if you're using all 12 channels, each channel or each probe will be able to record 20,000 readings. The sampling interval can be anywhere from 0.1 second, meaning it's recording 10 data points every second, up to 5 minutes. And the temperature range is anywhere from 0 to 400 degrees Celsius, or about up to 750 degrees Fahrenheit. So in addition to our Temp Guard Pro, we also have the lower cost Temp Guard Basic. So this is the same logger. It comes with 6 probes, but there's a new thermal barrier design, a basic design. It's a more industrial design, not quite as pretty as the other thermal barrier, but it does have the same temperature conditions where you can, the same temperature conditions as the Pro model. And it also comes with the TempChart Lite, which has basic temperature analysis, such as the temperature profile, min-max for each probe, the cure index, and pass-fail, but it does not include some of the more advanced functions that you get with our TempChart Pro software. Okay, and now we'll talk a bit about probes, which are, of course, necessary for measuring the temperature of your part. These are what are attached directly to the part in order to, they're in thermal contact with the part being baked to get a good temperature measurement. These come in a few different forms. These here are magnetic probes. If you're dealing with magnetic parts or magnetic substrates, you can stick these directly onto the substrate magnetically, and they come in what we call object probes, which are at the top, which are in direct thermal contact with the object being baked, or air probes, which you see at the bottom, for monitoring the air temperature of the oven. If you're dealing with a non-magnetic substrate, we have clamp probes, which can be clamped directly onto the part being baked. And again, these do come in both object probes and air probes for monitoring the air temperature of the oven. And then we have some specialty probes. We have open probes for measurements of thin parts. We have foil probes. These come in adhesive probes that can be stuck directly onto an object. So if you're dealing with small parts that may not be magnetic, or it may be difficult to clamp onto them, you can use these adhesive foil probes. And the other benefit of these is that they have a very quick reaction time. Since they're very thin, they react to changes in temperature very quickly. We also have probes with eyelets, such as this washer probe that you see at the top. These also have a quick reaction time, and you can screw them directly onto the object. It can measure at high temperatures up to 500 degrees Celsius. And then we have IR probes, which measure the IR radiation of ovens used to bake things like IR cured adhesives. So with that, I will hand things off to Ray Roby for a software demonstration.
All right, thank you, Corey. While Ray gets set up here, also want to remind you that concluding Ray's presentation, we'll have an open a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please enter them in the Q&A box located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and we'll get to them in order. We have a lot of experts on the phone, and we'd love to help out when we can. So with that, Ray, here you go. Remember to unmute yourself as well.
Okay, so hi, I'm Ray Roby. I'm automotive business liner for Gardner. So I just wanted to show you some of the stuff that Corey talked about in the presentation about what you can do in the software. So he talked about the curing conditions. So you can set up curing conditions for multiple materials, different suppliers, however you need to do it. And that's all based on like what he said on what the paint supplier indicates. So if I look here, I can set up my minimum, my low, my maximum, a high temp, a threshold temperature, and then actually the energy that's being used. And you can label these anything you like. You can also do the oven specification. So for this one, there were 4 zones. So you can set it up either by duration, how long it's going to be in that area, or you can set it up by distance, depending on what makes more sense for your process. We also have tolerance curves, like he said. So this shows you, when I show you the data, you'll see that you can set it up to make sure that if you're within that curve, you should know that you're probably within the specification for whatever parameters you set up for that coating. Cure charts. These are interesting because this is actually given to you by the part supplier or the paint supplier, and you can put different labels in here, like if it's going to be under cured and you're going to have, say, adhesion failures, or over cured and you're going to get like flaking or brittle paint, you can add those in also. And then you can set up pass-fail conditions. There's like multiple things that you can set up in here. If I create a new one, I can show you. You can do a temperature value. You can do a low temperature time, a mid temperature time, high temperature time, the equivalence time, or the cure index. So there's multiple ways you can set up pass-fail. And in here you can set up if you want like a below or above a range, or if you just want it to be 100% of your cure index, you can do that too. The organizers are set up pretty much how our organizers set up for all of our instruments. You can pick your air probe, you can type anything in here, you can change the color, and then you can import any schematic that you want in here so that you can have exactly where those probes are supposed to be on the vehicle. Then the one thing that I think is nice is that you can set up what we call QC procedures. And in here you can pick your curing condition, your oven specification, your tolerance curve, your cure chart, the pass-fail, and the organizer. And then whenever you download from this oven, you can apply this QC procedure and you don't have to redo everything every time. Now if we look at some data, here's just an example of the data that you get out of the instrument. And here's your tolerance curve that we talked about, and then this is your actual data that you get. And you can see most of this is pretty well within the tolerance curve, but this one probe's out, but that's actually the air probe. And a lot of times that's not something that's a big deal because you're just measuring the air and not the actual temperature of your part itself, which is what's important for you to make your specification. So here you can see all the different sensor data for the different locations, and this is whatever time you pick for the measurement time, and it shows you all the data for every throughout the whole oven. Which some people like to look at this, some people don't, but it's an option. You can see your pass-fail results. So here we set it up for the sensor called the center hood and the trunk, and we picked a cure index of a minimum of 90%. And then we also picked a low temperature time, and we didn't want it to be the low temperature that I set up in the specification. We didn't want it to be below that for less than 20 minutes. This cure chart data, this is now the temperature that each probe was at and how long it was at that temperature. So it's kind of the reverse of the sensor data. And then this one's important because this is the cure chart. And what Corey was talking about with the, you don't want to run your ovens too hot, but you also want to make sure you're meeting your minimum requirements that the paint supplier sets up for you or tells you that needs to be met for that specific coating. As long as all of your probes run through this green zone, you're doing really good. If I look at this other one, now you can see they're just all over the place. So this would not be a really good oven setup for this particular coating because only one probe is actually getting in the green section. This one is a little bit, and then these two are actually in the red section. So that would not work because you're not meeting your minimum cure requirements. The other thing that you can do is you can actually import data from the data pack. So if you have history that you want to look at in Temp Guard or Temp Chart, you can also pull that data in from the data pack. So if I pick this E-coat one, just to give you an example, and I go to apply QC procedure, I can really easily change this to another QC procedure, and everything's set up the way that I have it for the other material. It doesn't work very well for this one, but you get the idea that it's really easy to switch. You can change your oven start time if you want. You can actually zoom into if you want to zoom in on a certain section. Double click, and you can see that whole area if that's something that you're interested in or if that's the only area that you really need to look at. And then you can also save the zoom as a new file if you like. Did I miss anything, Corey?
Looks good to me.
All right. All right, well, hopefully you guys have some questions for us.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Thank you, Corey. Good stuff here. And now we do have a couple questions here. First one from Lewis. Are there cure conditions provided by suppliers, things that are preset?
Ask it again.
Yeah.
Sure. Are there cure conditions that are provided by suppliers? Are they preset?
So
typically, the baking specifications are going to be provided by the coating supplier. Correct, Ray?
by the coating supplier, yeah. But usually when we come in with a Temp Guard, we help you set up at least the initial and show you how to do everything, just to make sure that it's done right. And once you do it once, it's usually not too hard to do it the next oven.
Okay. Louis or Louis, did that answer your question? I'm going to unmute you here.
Yeah, it answers. Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was actually presets that you were to get from each of the coating suppliers that you could just automatically load based off of the things that they specified, right?
That's actually not a bad idea. The only thing you wouldn't be able to set up, I mean, everybody has their own oven setup, so that wouldn't be able to be pre-set up, but the curing conditions probably could be.
Yeah, that way you have the cure window, right? And then I know if
Yeah.
Okay. Great, thank you. Next question from Dennis here. One of our competitors gives an index value for amount of cure. Do we have something akin to that?
So we have the cure index, which means you met 100% of the criteria that you set up in the instrument. I think Greg knows the answer. Oh, he's not. Corey, do you remember what that data pack was called? DQ something? I can't remember what it was, but it's basically the equivalent of what they use. It does the same thing. Is that what you're asking?
Let me find you, Dennis. You are unmuted, sir.
Yes, that's exactly what I was asking. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And I'll mute you again here. I know you have a couple more questions. But Ray Corey, another from Dennis. Can you look at rates of temp increase? Can you look at rates of temperature increase?
I would say not exactly, but that one graph I showed you does show you the temperature and the time that it was at that temperature, so you could calculate it.
If there are certain key temperatures you're looking at and you want to know how fast it goes from one temperature to another, you can set those values. And it will tell you how long it takes for each probe to get to those critical values.
Okay. Does that help, Dennis? I've unmuted you here.
Yes, that does help. This might be something that you would consider for an improvement in the future, though. I know that there's other software you can actually draw a line to get the slope so that you can get over whatever time period you want, exactly what how quickly you're changing temperature. And that's very helpful at times.
Like your ramp up rate, kind of?
Yes, ma'am. So you can just draw it on and go from point to point. It gives you what your ramp is, degrees C per minute or Fahrenheit or per minute or second or whatever units it is.
Actually, that is in the software. I'm seeing it here. It does give you the slope of the curve.
Excellent. Thank you.
You want to share your screen? All right. Thanks, Dennis. Hey, Corey, are you able to share your screen and show that?
I'm not able to currently. Can you do control?
Change the role? Yeah. There you go. While Corey's getting that up, another question here. I think you heard Ray say that you can import data pack files into our software. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right. There you go. Another one, Dennis. Looks like we're 3 for 3 for you, sir. There you go, Corey.
You can see from here, it gives you the peak temperature that each probe reached, how long it took to reach that temperature, and then it gives you the slope of what the average increase in temperature is per minute.
Good. Good deal. Questions. If anyone has additional questions, please enter them in the Q&A box located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Any other typical questions, Corey, Ray, or any of the sales or business line managers on the phone? Do you have, or do you constantly get the same questions over and over as it relates to temperature control?
So the one thing that I think is really important about our instrument is that USB stick. So you don't have to pull all the probes out, take the logger out of the thermal barrier, take that upstairs, and then have to plug that in and get the data off of it. You can just put a USB stick in. It takes about a second. And then you can just walk upstairs with that USB stick. And if you need to rerun another oven, you can just run it back through. So I think that's something that customers really like about our instrument.
One thing I'd like to mention is that with that thermal barrier, which has heat sinks in it, and those heat sinks are removable. So the thermal barrier is the case that the heat sinks and the logger go into, and then the heat sinks are the actual parts that soak up the heat so that the logger doesn't get overheated. And so when I talked about the maximum amount of time that it could be in the oven for at 250 degrees Celsius or 200 degrees Celsius, that's referring to how much time it can spend in there before those heat sinks get overheated. But they can actually be removed from the thermal barrier, meaning you can buy additional heat sinks. So if you want to run continuous tests, you just swap out the heat sinks with a cool one and run another test while the heat sinks are cooling.
Great. Another question. Can you draw lines on the graph that will give you the slope at that section?
I think we only tell you the slope. You can't draw lines, can you, Corey?
Let's see.
Yeah, you can only zoom.
Doesn't look like it. Yeah.
No.
Okay. Okay. Dennis' comment, by the way, I see the index values on the current page. Thank you. You are welcome. Yeah, there they are. Other questions or comments? We have a lot of experts on the phone here. We have some time left as well. We'd love to help you out. Are there any challenges you're experiencing in your own facilities that we can assist with? Whether it's answering questions for you, talking about some of the specific features like this, like the index values of our products and software, or just some other general solutions we can help you with. Love to.
One thing that you can do, you can take, some people like to have like their primer oven profile along with their top coat oven profile on the same graph, and you can merge two together if you want. Sometimes it gets a little weird, but I mean, some people like it that way, so that's another thing that the software does do.
Mm-hmm.
You can set up multiple print layouts. I don't know, I didn't talk about that, but maybe we just want to show us the difference.
Looks like I missed a question in there also. Can you turn the leads on and off on the graph to be able to look at just a couple of the leads in a crowded area?
Yeah, you can. On the right side, Corey, where it says sensors at the top, see?
And with that question, Dennis, you are our customer of the day. Congratulations.
And so, see, you can just click them on and off if you want, just some or the others. It's up to you what you want to look at.
Great. Dennis, I've unmuted you again. Did that help answer your question?
Absolutely. This is really quite impressive software. Thank you so much for answering so many of my dumb questions.
No, not dumb at all. And ask away. I'm just going to keep you unmuted here. Just, you have a conversation with the tech folks. I don't need to be the middle person here.
Dennis is actually our plant in the audience. We put him there to ask us these questions just so we can answer them.
Well, I've looked at thousands of these, or so it seems, and so you have some really great features that are helpful in this that I wish I had in the software that I'm currently using.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We try to make it more user-friendly and a little bit more like in the order where you would think about what you wanted to do next, so it was easier to set up. So, I mean, we did try to make it more user-friendly, but...
Yeah, and if at a later date, for Dennis and for anyone on the phone here, if you'd like to see a more in-depth demonstration of this software, we can do it kind of like a WebEx meeting or a Microsoft Teams meeting or Zoom or however or whatever works for you. we can do that anytime with either Corey, one of our regional sales managers, or business line managers. So we're always around to help, and I think Corey and Ray, at the end of the presentation, they'll flash up their emails. Feel free to email them directly. Also, we'll be sending follow-ups of the presentation that Corey gave, as well as a link to this recording, so you can watch it at a later date or bring some colleagues in, and you'll have our contact information there as well if you need any additional follow-ups or have any other questions.
I think you missed a few questions.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm not done yet. Yes, Chad, can wireless... Pardon me?
So right now we don't have wireless set up for the instrument. We just have that USB stick. And part of the reason why we didn't do it is because our competitors tried it, and with a lot of the OEM plants, because the walls are so thick in the ovens, the signal actually won't go through. So they actually would have to set up like towers in there to be able to get the signal to transfer, and it gets to be pretty expensive. So if at some point the Wi-Fi in the plants would work better, then it would totally be an option and something we would look at. The one thing that we've been talking about for a few years would be wireless probes, so you didn't have to have the line. I think that would be awesome, but we're looking at that, and sometimes that stuff's a little bit difficult to develop too.
Okay. And the next question there, can you run any statistical capability comparing runs over time with the software?
So, Corey, isn't there a way to lay them on top of each other? Do you remember? Where you can take multiple... Yeah, so here's the best thing that I can show you. This is how we would do it. We would take all the different readings and put them over time and make sure that you're running the same type of curve for all the different things.
But that's also sort of what the tolerance is for. Once you establish sort of an optimal temperature curve, that's when you apply those tolerances, that sort of gray area that you want to be within, so you can see visually whether your temperature curves are inside or outside of that optimal area.
Chad, I'll unmute you. Did that answer your question, sir?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. So basically, I was just looking at runs over time. So assuming you have same product going through the same oven, same temperature profiles, looking at the, say on this one, the right-hand hood, number 2, if you ran it, twice a day or, 5 times a week, et cetera, looking at performance over time and just being able to either stack that data, looking at daily or monthly, type readings, and looking at capability. I'm sure you can, throw it within, Excel file or Minitab or something like that once you have the data to export. But I just didn't know if you had that capability to analyze, multiple runs of the same location within the software.
So Corey could turn off all the sensors, but one sensor. Well, that might not work with this one because I don't know if we've got the same stuff, but you could just look at one probe at a time over time and see if you're running the thing. But also what he was saying about that tolerance area that we set up, that gray area, that's kind of how we do it. So you're always within where you think your product's going to perform the best.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at, this is only within a single run, you're seeing your variation. I want to see what's the variation over time, not for one run, but for multiple months.
So, well, I mean, we don't have that much data in here, but he was showing you 4 different measurements, all on the same graph. So
the problem here is that all these measurements are just copies of each other. That's why they're all all on top of each other because these are just copies of the same measurement.
Oh, okay, understood. Yeah, I just couldn't tell if there were different days or different times that the each one of those data sections applied to. Thank you.
Okay, so you can do, you know, months worth of data, you know, to compare. Is that correct?
Yeah, you could do as much data. It just might get a little.
Okay, but it's a visual assessment, but you don't get any, I guess, statistical analysis. You know, you're looking at PPK or CPK.
No. Okay. We don't have that in.
Good. All right. Thank you, Chad. Other questions out there, or any other frequent things our sales and field team gets asked? This is now your time to play Stump Ray and Corey.
Does Dennis have another question, or did you already get that?
I think, Dennis, did I get all your? I think I got all his questions. Yep. Yeah, who else has some? Oh, there you go, Dennis. Thank you. Could a numerical analysis by using your index value over the same region for each? Could you get a numerical analysis by using your index value over the same region for each?
True.
Sorry.
Right, Dennis? You're unmuted
No. That was a typing failure. To the previous caller, what I was going to say is,
translate for you.
no, sorry, my mistake. To the previous caller, if he needed a value that could be evaluated over time, he could use your index. Set your index over minutes 8 through 14 if those are the critical times, or looking at that, and you could ultimately use that index or just use the peak numbers, throw that into Minitab, and then you'd be able to come up with a CPK to show a statistical compliance or something like that. That's just what I was going to say.
That's a good idea.
Nice. Thank you. I'll see if we can make room for you on our team if you're interested.
You have some great people there already. I've learned a lot here. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, other questions here. We have another 15 minutes on the clock, and I hesitate to cut you guys short here if there's still questions out there.
Do you want to show the printing stuff, Corey? We never did that.
Why don't you show the printing stuff?
Okay.
He said the custom reports. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
All right, so just for example, this one that I have here, if I go to print, I can do a quick print, which prints the document like as normal, or I can go to define layout. And here I can pick like the standard print and then just print it. Hopefully you'll see it. Oh, did I miss print preview? I might have. Oh, I just printed. That's okay. So if we look at preview, you can put your schematic down here. You can put all the sensor information. You can put your cure chart and then your actual data. And then you can set these up for whatever you want, the title and everything. You can send it as a PDF. And you can also do, say you just want the analysis, and do the preview. And then you just get the data with the schematic, but you can change this any way you like. So that's pretty user-friendly because I know a lot of times when I go to customers, they have different formats that they want, so we tried to make this part user-friendly too. And then a lot of them just save it to a PDF and then they store it on a computer, and they're not actually printing everything out anymore and like putting it in a binder. They're just putting it in a folder on like a shared drive. I don't think there's other stuff.
Yeah. No other questions here yet. Anyone else from the field? Are there frequently asked questions you all get? Geraldine, you're awful quiet today.
I know, I noticed that too.
Okay. Well, we will, like I said, we'll send out the presentation that Corey gave as well as the link to the recording. You'll get that in the next day or two. Just thank you very much for joining us. Hope this was of value. We're in the process of, we have an office hours scheduled for next week, Wednesday on Hayes transmission. You'll receive an invite to that on Friday. We usually send our invites out on Friday. And we're also looking to add additional topics and subjects that we can bring you probably on an every other week basis here. We've had a lot of great feedback from you all and want to continue providing this education service to you. So if anyone ever has any subject ideas, something that's been bothering them that they really want to know, feel free to reach out to any of us. We can get a one-on-one webinar or meeting scheduled, virtual meeting scheduled, or you know, if it's general enough, we can hold a webinar or a presentation like this. But thank you very much for joining us. And last question in here, Chad just got it under the wire. Can you explain the Cure Index feature?
So the Cure Index, hold on, can you give me back control?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can feel it. Just click together.
There you go.
Okay, so when you're setting up your measurement, you enter your curing conditions, which this is usually what the coatings producer will give to you to indications of how long it needs to bake at various temperatures. And so you enter that information into the curing conditions. And then based on the measurement data, the software will take the curing conditions, combine it with the actual measurement data, and calculate how well cured your coating is as a percentage. So it will actually tell you your coating is 100% cured, 105%, 95%, based on the curing conditions given by the coatings manufacturer. And so that is often used as a pass-fail criteria, where you say, all right, I want my coating to be between 100 and 105% cured. And if it's outside of that range, it's either undercured or overcured, or I'm using too much energy and things like that. So that's generally used for the pass-fail conditions.
Yeah, I think most people use Cure Index. They might put in like a temperature that they don't want to go over based off of something that the coating suppliers have given them, but usually they just use the Cure Index. That's it.
Good. Chad says thanks. So good job, guys. All right, with that, we'll adjourn here, and everyone have a great afternoon. And if you have any questions or think of something later today or down the line, don't hesitate to reach out to anyone from Big Gardner here. So thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.